Captain Ji-won Kim stared at the red lights flashing across every screen on the bridge. Each one meant something was broken. Each one meant people were going to die. "How long?" she asked quietly. Engineer Min-ho Park looked up from his console. His face was pale and covered in sweat. 3 weeks? Maybe 4 if we shut down everything except life support. 3 weeks. Ji-won closed her eyes. Behind her in the massive cryo chambers, 50,000 people slept peacefully. They had no idea their ship was dying. They dreamed of their new home on a distant planet. They would never wake up. The New Dawn was humanity's first real colony ship. It had taken 40 years to build. Every nation on Earth had contributed. The ship carried scientists, farmers, teachers, and families. It carried hope for humanity's future among the stars. Now it was just a metal coffin drifting through empty space. "What happened?" Ji-won asked. Min-ho pulled up a diagram. "The antimatter containment failed. We had a cascade reaction. It destroyed the main engine, the backup engine, and most of our power systems. We're running on emergency batteries now." Dr. Hana Lee spoke from the medical station. "Can we send a distress signal?" "Already did," Min-ho said. "But we're 40 light years from Earth. Even if they heard us, they can't reach us. We don't have faster-than-light travel yet. Any rescue mission would take decades." The bridge fell silent. Ji-won looked at her crew. They were good people. They had trained for years. They knew what this meant. "Wake the other crew members," Ji-won said. "They deserve to know." Over the next hour, the ship's crew was awakened. 300 people gathered in the main hall. Ji-won told them the truth. Some cried. Some sat in stunned silence. A few got angry and demanded she fix it somehow, but there was nothing to fix. They were stranded. They were dying. Young Daesong, only 8 years old, held his mother's hand. He had been awakened because his mother was one of the engineers. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew it was bad. He saw the adults crying. The days passed slowly. The crew tried everything. Minho and his team worked 18-hour shifts trying to rebuild the engines from spare parts. It was useless. "The damage was too severe. On the 14th day, something changed. Captain!" The sensor officer's voice cracked with emotion. "There's a ship approaching." Ji-won ran to the bridge. "Show me." On the screen, a vessel appeared. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The ship was organic-looking, with smooth curves and a pale blue glow. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the New Dawn. "Are they responding to our distress signal?" Hana asked. "I don't know," Ji-won said. "Try to communicate." They sent radio signals, light pulses, and mathematical sequences. For 10 minutes, there was no response. Then the alien ship moved closer. A voice came through the speakers. It was translated somehow, the words clear but with a strange musical quality. "Human vessel, we hear your call. We are the Tharine. Do you require assistance?" Ji-won grabbed the microphone. Her hands were shaking. "Yes. Our engines are destroyed. Our power is failing. We have 50,000 people on board. Please, can you help us?" There was a long pause. Then the voice came again. "We are sending a shuttle. Prepare to receive our captain." 2 hours later, Captain Suran of the Tharine stepped onto the New Dawn. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. His eyes were large and dark. He wore simple robes and carried no weapons. Ji-won met him in the airlock. "Thank you for coming. I'm Captain Ji-won Kim." Suran bowed his head. "I am Suran. Show me your engines." Minho led them to the engine room. The destruction was obvious. Melted metal, burned circuits, and exposed conduits filled the space. Suran walked around silently, examining everything. Finally, he spoke. "This is severe damage. Your technology is primitive. You should not have traveled so far with such limited capability." Ji-won felt her cheeks burn with shame. "We're new to space. We're still learning." Suran looked at her. His expression was unreadable. "How many sleep in your chambers?" 50,000. Men, women, and children. And you have no way to save them?" "No." Suran was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I must speak with my crew. Wait here." He returned to his shuttle. Ji-won and her officers waited in the airlock, afraid to hope. An hour passed. Then another. When Suran returned, he looked tired. "My crew is not pleased with my decision. My government will be very angry. But I cannot leave you to die." He held out a small device. "This is a stabilization core. It is Tharine technology. Very rare. Very old. We have only a few remaining." "What does it do?" Minyo asked. It will stabilize your power systems. You will not have full engines, but you will have life support and basic propulsion, enough to reach a habitable world. Jiwan couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're giving this to us? Why? Saran smiled sadly. My people are old. We are fading. Once we were millions. Now we are only thousands. We remember what it was like to be alone and afraid in the darkness. We remember needing help that never came. He handed the device to Minho. Perhaps you will do better than we did. It took 3 days to install the stabilization core. The Therine engineers worked alongside Minho's team, showing them how to integrate the alien technology. Slowly, the New Dawn systems came back online. But the ship couldn't make it to their original destination. Saran's crew calculated a new course. There was a planet 16 light-years away. It was smaller than Earth, but habitable. With the Therine towing them part of the way, they could reach it in 8 months. On the day they departed, Jiwan stood with Saran in the airlock one final time. How can we repay you? She asked. Survive, Saran said simply. Grow. Become better than you are now. That is enough. If we ever meet again, we will not, Saran interrupted gently. My people are dying. In a century, perhaps less, the Therine will be gone. This is our gift to your future. Tears ran down Jiwan's face. Then we'll remember you. I promise. We will never forget what you did for us. Suryan touched her shoulder. That is more than enough. The Therine ship departed, disappearing into the stars. The New Dawn continued on its new course, powered by alien technology and human determination. 8 months later, they landed on their new world. They named it New Haven. As the colonists were awakened and stepped onto solid ground, Jiwan stood beside a large stone. Minyo had helped her carve words into it. The monument read, On this world we remember Saran of the Therine. He gave us everything to save strangers. We will remember. We will repay. Young Daesong stood beside his mother, looking at the stone. What does it mean, Mom? It means we owe them, she said. And humans always pay their debts. Jiwan placed her hand on the stone. Around her, 50,000 people began building a new home. They would grow. They would thrive. And they would never forget the kindness shown to them by a dying race. The debt was recorded. The promise was made, and humanity would keep it no matter how long it took. Admiral Hyun Choi looked out at the stars from his office on Earth. 86 years had passed since the New Dawn incident. Humanity had changed. They had discovered faster than light travel. They had built colonies on 47 different worlds. They had met dozens of alien species and joined the complicated politics of the galaxy. But the galaxy didn't trust humans. They saw humanity as young, aggressive, and unpredictable. Other species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. To them, humans were dangerous children playing with weapons they didn't understand. Hyun didn't care what they thought. He had a job to do, and he did it well. His assistant knocked on the door. Admiral, Ambassador Sora Kang is here to see you. Send her in. Sora entered carrying a datapad. She looked worried. We have a situation. Captain Jinwoo Nam found something during his exploration mission. What kind of something? An abandoned outpost. Alien technology, very old. And Hyun? She paused. The symbols match records from the New Dawn rescue. Hyun sat up straight. The Therine? Yes. Jinwoo is bringing back data, but he thinks we should investigate further. There might be more Therine facilities out there. Do we know where their homeworld is? Sora shook her head. They never told us. After they saved the New Dawn, they disappeared. We've never encountered them again. Hyun thought for a moment. There's someone we should talk to. Someone who was there. 2 days later, they stood in a comfortable apartment on New Haven. Dr. Daesong sat in a chair by the window. He was 94 years old now, but his mind was still sharp. When he heard why they had come, his eyes filled with tears. I was just a child, Day said, but I remember Captain Saran. He was kind. He smiled at me when I was scared. My mother told me he had saved us all. Do you remember anything else about the Therine? Sora asked gently. Day nodded. They seemed sad. Even when they were helping us, they seemed like they were carrying a great weight. Captain Saran told my mother that his people were fading away. He said they were only thousands. That was 86 years ago, Hyun said quietly. If they were dying, then we need to find them, Day said firmly. If they're still out there, we need to find them. Captain Jinwoo Nam was given command of the Remembrance, a fast exploration ship. His mission was simple: find the Tharine. It took 4 months of searching. Jinwoo and his crew followed old star charts and abandoned outposts. They interviewed other alien species who had vague memories of the Tharine. Most didn't know much. Some had never heard of them at all. Finally, on a remote world far from the busy trade routes, they found answers. The planet had once been a Tharine colony. Now it was mostly empty. A few hundred Tharine still lived there in small villages among ancient ruins. When Jinwoo's shuttle landed, the Tharine who came to meet them looked shocked to see humans. "We are from Earth," Jinwoo explained through a translator. "We're looking for the Tharine people. We want to thank you for saving our colony ship 86 years ago." An old Tharine stepped forward. "You remember us? After all this time? We never forgot." The old Tharine led them to a small building that served as a community center. Inside, other Tharine gathered. They looked thin and tired. Their clothes were simple and worn. "How many Tharine are there now?" Jinwoo asked carefully. 2,000 perhaps, maybe less. "We have 3 colony worlds left. Our homeworld was abandoned 50 years ago. We couldn't maintain it anymore." "What happened to your people?" The old Tharine sighed. "We are old. Our species is tired. We had our time among the stars. Now we fade. It is natural. But you're not being left in peace, are you?" Jinwoo's science officer, Borahan, spoke up. She had been reviewing data on her tablet. "I've been reading about the local politics. The Vreneth Empire claims this region. They say they're protecting you." The Tharine looked uncomfortable. "The Vreneth are complicated. They provide us with supplies and medicine. But they also take things. Our technology. Our historical records. They say they're preserving our culture, but they're really claiming it as their own." "Do you want to stay here?" Jinwoo asked. "We have nowhere else to go. We are too few to stand alone." Jinwoo stood up. "Thank you for talking with us. We'll be in touch." Back on the Remembrance, Jinwoo sent a full report to Earth. He included videos of the Tharine villages, interviews with the survivors, and data on the Vreneth Empire's activities. He ended his report with a simple statement: "The people who saved us are dying. We should do something." The report reached Admiral Hyun's desk. He read it 3 times. Then he called Ambassador Sora. "We need to take this to the council," he said. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that 86 years ago a Tharine captain gave us irreplaceable technology to save 50,000 strangers. Now his people are being slowly erased from existence. What do you think we should do?" Sora smiled. "I think we should keep the promise." The Human Council met in Geneva. Representatives from all 47 human colonies attended in person or via hologram. Admiral Hyun presented the information. He showed them videos of the Tharine, explained the situation, and reviewed the historical records from the New Dawn. Then he pulled up Captain Ji-won Kim's last will and testament. She had died 20 years earlier, but her words were still powerful. "I leave this message for future generations," Ji-won's recorded voice said. "The Tharine saved us when we had no hope. They gave us their future so we could have ours. If the Tharine ever need help, humanity must respond. No debate, no hesitation. We go, we help. We repay the debt. This is not a request. It is an obligation we carry as long as humanity exists." The room was silent. Then the council president spoke. "We need to vote on a course of action." "What are our options?" a colony representative asked. Admiral Hyun stepped forward. "We offer the Tharine asylum. Full citizenship in human worlds, protection, resources, whatever they need." "That will anger the Vreneth Empire," someone said. "They claim the Tharine as their protectorates." "I don't care," Hyun said flatly. "The Tharine gave us everything when we had nothing. Now they need us. This could lead to war. Then we fight." The room erupted in arguments. Some representatives worried about the cost. Others worried about galactic politics. A few questioned whether they had the right to interfere. Finally, Dr. Daesong's voice cut through the noise. He had come to Geneva for this meeting. His voice was old but strong. "I was 8 years old when the New Dawn was dying. I didn't understand what was happening. But I remember my mother crying. I remember the adults were scared. Then Captain Saran came and he saved us. He smiled at me when I was frightened. That memory has stayed with me for 86 years. Day stood up, leaning on his cane. Humanity has grown strong. We have ships and weapons and colonies. But what good is all that power if we can't help the people who helped us? What does it say about us if we forget kindness?" The room was quiet now. Everyone was listening. Captain Ji-won made a promise. She carved it in stone on New Haven. She said we would remember. She said we would repay. Are we going to break that promise? The council president called for a vote. The decision had to be unanimous for such a major action. The representatives voted one by one. Some voted yes immediately. Others hesitated, then voted yes. In the end, every single representative voted the same way. Unanimous. Humanity would help the Tharine. Admiral Hyun felt something tight in his chest loosen. Beside him, Sora was crying quietly. We'll need to move carefully, the council president said. The Vreneth Empire is powerful. We need a plan. We'll make one, Hyun said. But first we send a message to every Tharine world. We tell them that humanity remembers. We tell them that Saran's kindness is being repaid. We tell them they have a home with us if they want it. Dr. Dae-song nodded slowly. Saran would be 200 years old now. He might still be alive. Then let's find out, Sora said. Let's bring them home. As the meeting ended, Hyun looked at the star map on the wall. The Tharine worlds were far away, deep in Vreneth space. Getting them out would be dangerous. It would be complicated. It might start a war, but humanity had made a promise 86 years ago, and humans kept their promises no matter the cost. President Mirai Shin stood on the balcony of the Earth Council building, looking down at the city below. In the streets, news screens showed the same story on every channel. Humanity was preparing for something big. People were excited and scared at the same time. General Taejin Bayek joined her on the balcony. He carried a tablet filled with military reports. The fleets are mobilizing. Every colony is contributing ships. We'll have the largest human armada ever assembled within 2 months. How many ships? Mirai asked. 300 combat vessels, 500 support ships, transport capacity for over 2,000 passengers. That's everyone, Mirai said quietly. Every Tharine we know about. Yes, ma'am. We're not leaving anyone behind. Mirai turned to face him. The Vreneth Empire has sent 3 formal protests already. They say the Tharine are under their protection and we have no right to interfere. Taejin's jaw tightened. Protection. They're stealing Tharine technology and erasing their culture. That's not protection. That's conquest by another name, I agree. But the galaxy doesn't see it that way. Most species think we're being aggressive. They think this is about power, not honor. Let them think what they want, Taejin said. We know the truth. In another part of the building, scientist Bora Han was working with a team studying old Tharine records. They had obtained copies of historical data from the abandoned outposts. Bora was fascinated by what she found. The Tharine were amazing, she told her assistant. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours in some areas. The stabilization core they gave the New Dawn is still something we can't fully replicate, and they just gave it away. Why would they do that? The assistant asked. Because they valued life more than technology. They saw 50,000 people about to die and they couldn't walk away, even though it meant giving up something irreplaceable. Bora pulled up images of Tharine art and architecture. The designs were beautiful, flowing, and organic. This culture deserves to survive. The Vreneth are boxing up these artifacts and putting them in museums. They're turning a living people into a historical exhibit. Can we stop it? That's what we're about to find out. Across the galaxy, human ambassadors were visiting Tharine colonies. Young officer Junho An led one of these missions. He was only 26, but he had been chosen because he was fluent in Tharine language and had studied their culture extensively. His ship landed on the second Tharine colony world. This one was larger than the first, with about 800 Tharine living in several small communities. When Junho's shuttle touched down, a crowd gathered to watch. An elderly Tharine approached. She walked with a cane, but her back was straight and her eyes were sharp. You are human, she said in perfect Earth common. Yes, my name is Junho An. We've come with a message from Earth. I know why you're here, the old Tharine said. Word has spread. You're offering us asylum. Yes. Full citizenship, protection, resources. A home. The old Tharine studied him carefully. I am Talani, daughter of Saran. My father saved your colony ship 86 years ago. Junho felt his breath catch. Your father is a hero to all humanity. Is he? He died 15 years ago. He was 203 years old. Talani's voice was soft. He never regretted his choice, even though the council punished him for giving away our technology. He said the look in your captain's eyes was worth it. He said he saw hope. Captain Jiwon Kim never forgot him. She made a promise that humanity would repay the debt. Tilani smiled sadly. And now you're here 86 years later. Most species would have forgotten by now. Humans don't forget kindness, Junho said. Will you come with us? Tilani was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, let me speak with my people. Over the next week, Junho met with Tharine communities across the colony. Some were eager to leave. They were tired of Reneth oversight and wanted to preserve their culture freely. Others were hesitant. This was their home, even if it was diminished. A few were suspicious. Why would a powerful young species help them? Junho answered their questions honestly. We're doing this because it's right. Your people saved ours when you had no reason to. Now we're strong enough to help you. That's what families do. We're not family, one Tharine said. You became family when Captain Saran chose compassion over convenience. You became family when he gave us a future. Now we're giving you one back. In the end, 742 Tharine from the second colony agreed to accept asylum. Tilani was one of them. As she packed her belongings, she held a small data crystal. It contained her father's personal logs, recorded throughout his long life. Meanwhile, the Vreneth Empire was not sitting idle. Their ambassador to Earth, a tall being named Krelvax, demanded a meeting with President Mirai. You are making a terrible mistake, Krelvax said. His voice was harsh and angry. The Tharine are under Vreneth protection. You have no authority to remove them. They're not prisoners, Mirai replied calmly. They're free people making their own choice. You're manipulating them, offering them things they don't need, interfering in affairs that don't concern you. Affairs that don't concern us? Mirai's voice hardened. The Tharine saved 50,000 human lives 86 years ago. That makes it our concern. They're family. They are dying, obsolete species. We are preserving what remains of their culture. You're stealing their culture and claiming it as your own. There's a difference between preservation and theft. Krelvax leaned forward. If you continue this action, there will be consequences. The Vreneth Empire is 10 times your size. You cannot stand against us. Maybe not, Mirai said. But we're going to try anyway, because that's what you do for family. The meeting ended badly. Krelvax returned to his ship and immediately sent a message to the Vreneth homeworld. The Empire began moving military assets toward the Tharine colonies. General Tajin watched the Vreneth fleet movements with concern. They're positioning blockades around all 3 Tharine worlds. They're going to try to prevent the evacuations. Can we break through? Mirai asked. Yes, but it will mean fighting. Once we fire the first shot, we're at war. Then we don't fire first. We go in peacefully. We evacuate everyone who wants to leave. If the Vreneth attack us while we're on a humanitarian mission, the galaxy will see them as the aggressors. That's risky, Tajin said. We might lose ships. We might lose people, I know, but we made a promise. Back on the Tharine colonies, human teams were coordinating evacuations. They worked quickly but carefully, making sure every Tharine who wanted to leave could do so safely. They brought medical supplies, food, and comfort items. They treated every Tharine with respect and dignity. The Tharine were amazed by the effort. They had expected a few ships, maybe a token gesture. Instead, they saw hundreds of vessels, thousands of humans working around the clock, and resources that must have cost enormous amounts of money. Why are you doing all this? A young Tharine asked Junho. Because when my species was dying in space, Captain Saran didn't ask what it would cost. He just helped. Now we're doing the same. Word spread through the Tharine communities. More and more decided to accept asylum. By the end of the 3rd week, nearly every Tharine had agreed to leave. Only a handful of the oldest ones chose to stay behind, saying they wanted to die on their colony worlds. In total, 1,847 Tharine would be evacuated. Almost the entire remaining population of their species. The Vreneth Empire issued an ultimatum. Return the Tharine to their colonies within 48 hours or face military action. The Human Council met one final time before the deadline. Some representatives were nervous. A few suggested returning some of the Tharine to avoid war. But most stood firm. President Mirai prepared a response. She recorded it carefully, knowing it would be broadcast across the galaxy. Every species would see it. Every government would judge humanity by these words. To the Vreneth Empire and all who are watching, Mirai began. 86 years ago, the Tharine gave humanity everything to save strangers. They shared irreplaceable technology. They towed our dying ship to safety. They asked for nothing in return except that we survive and grow. She paused, letting her words sink in. Now the Thareen need help. They are being slowly erased, their culture stolen, their history claimed by others. They have asked us for asylum. We have agreed. The Vreneth Empire demands we abandon them. They threaten us with war. They say we cannot stand against their power. Mireille's voice grew stronger. They're probably right. The Vreneth Empire is larger, older, and more established than humanity. In a prolonged war, we would likely lose. But we will not abandon the Thareen. We will not break our promise. Because 86 years ago, they showed us what it means to value life over convenience. They showed us what it means to help when help is needed, regardless of the cost. If the Vreneth Empire wants war over a humanitarian evacuation, then we will face them. We will stand with the Thareen, because that is what family does. The broadcast ended. Across human space, people watched in silence. Some cried. Some cheered. All of them understood that their species was about to face its greatest test. General Tajin began final preparations for the evacuation. Officer Junho loaded the last Thareen families onto transport ships. Scientist Bora backed up every piece of Thareen cultural data she could find. Captain Junho An gripped the armrests of his command chair as his ship dropped out of FTL near the first Thareen colony. Around him, 20 human vessels materialized from faster-than-light travel. In the distance, he could see the Vreneth blockade. 6 warships positioned between his fleet and the planet. They're hailing us, his communications officer said. Put them through. A Vreneth commander appeared on screen. Human vessels, you are entering restricted space. Turn back immediately. We're here on a humanitarian mission, Junho replied calmly. We're evacuating Thareen citizens who have requested asylum. We mean no harm to Vreneth ships or personnel. Those citizens are under our protection. You have no authority here. They're free people making their own choice. We're simply providing transportation. The Vreneth commander's face darkened. If you proceed, we will open fire. Then you'll be firing on unarmed transports carrying civilians. The galaxy is watching. Are you sure that's what you want? There was a tense silence. Finally, the Vreneth commander cut the connection. But their ships didn't move. They stayed in position, weapons armed. Take us in, Junho ordered. Slowly. Non-threatening approach. Keep all weapons offline. His fleet moved toward the planet. Every second felt like an hour. Junho expected weapons fire at any moment, but the Vreneth ships held their position. They were calling his bluff, assuming he would back down. He didn't. The human ships reached the planet and began loading Thareen passengers. Families climbed aboard with their belongings. Children held their parents' hands. Elderly Thareen moved slowly up the ramps, taking one last look at their homeworld. The Vreneth ships watched but did nothing. They had expected humans to be easily intimidated. They were wrong. On the second colony, the situation was more complicated. The Vreneth had deployed ground forces, claiming they were protecting Thareen facilities. When human ships arrived, armed Vreneth soldiers stood between them and the Thareen communities. Officer Borahan led the ground team. She approached the Vreneth commander slowly, her hands visible and empty. We're here to evacuate Thareen who have requested asylum, she said clearly. No Thareen will be leaving, the Vreneth commander replied. They are needed here to maintain cultural sites. They're not museum pieces. They're people. Let them choose. They have chosen. They choose to stay under our protection. Bora turned and called out in Thareen language, Is there anyone here who wishes to leave with us? From behind the Vreneth soldiers, Thareen began stepping forward. First one, then 3, then dozens. They moved slowly but deliberately toward the human ships. The Vreneth soldiers looked uncertain. They had weapons, but these were unarmed civilians simply walking away. The Vreneth commander started to give an order, but Bora interrupted. The whole galaxy is watching this. If you shoot civilians trying to leave peacefully, you'll become the monsters everyone thinks you are. The standoff lasted 10 minutes. Then the Vreneth commander lowered his weapon and stepped aside. The Thareen walked past, tears streaming down their faces. 742 people boarded human ships that day, but the third colony, Thareen Prime, was different. This was the original homeworld, now mostly abandoned but still holding great cultural significance. 347 Thareen remained there, including Tilani. The Vreneth had deployed 12 battle groups around Thareen Prime. They were not going to let this world go easily. When Junho's evacuation fleet arrived, they found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. "They're not letting us through," Junho's tactical officer reported. "The blockade is solid. Keep broadcasting our intentions. Tell them we're on a peaceful mission." They're responding. "They say if we try to land, they'll destroy our ships." Junho looked at his crew. They were young, most of them. Many had never seen combat. "Send a message to Earth, tell them we need help." The message reached General Taejin within hours. He had been waiting for this moment. Fleet Commander Nari Yun was standing by with the human Third Fleet, the largest battle group humanity had ever assembled. "Go," Taejin ordered. "Bring them home." Nari's fleet jumped to FTL. 150 warships, the pride of human military engineering. They arrived at Tharine Prime in a blaze of blue light, taking position between Junho's transports and the Vreneth blockade. Nari opened a channel to the Vreneth commander. "This is Fleet Commander Nari Yun of the United Human Fleet. We're here to complete a humanitarian evacuation. Stand aside. You are outnumbered, human. I have 12 battle groups. You have 4, I know. But I have something you don't. And what is that? A reason worth fighting for." The Vreneth commander laughed. "You would risk war over a handful of dying aliens? Over some old debt? You humans are fools." Nari's voice was steady. "Maybe, but we're not here to negotiate. We're not here to ask permission. We're here to collect our family. You can let us do it peacefully, or we can do it the hard way. Your choice. Then you choose death." The Vreneth fleet powered weapons. Human ships did the same. On both sides, officers prepared for battle. This was it. The moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. But before the first shot was fired, something unexpected happened. New ships dropped out of FTL. Not human. Not Vreneth. A small fleet of vessels from various species. 23 ships in total, representing 9 different civilizations. Nari stared at her sensors. "Who are they?" Her communications officer was scrolling through incoming transmissions. They're here to help us. These are all minor species. They're joining our fleet." One ship moved forward. Its captain appeared on screen. The alien had green skin and multiple eyes. "Commander Nari Yun, I am Captain Voss of the Pelin Republic. We have come to stand with humanity." "Why?" Nari asked, genuinely shocked. "Because you're doing what we wish we could do, standing against a powerful empire for what's right. For too long, species like mine have bowed to the Vreneth and others like them. We watched as they absorbed smaller cultures. We stayed quiet because we were afraid." Voss looked directly at the camera. "But if humans can honor an 86-year-old debt at the risk of war, then we can honor a new friendship. We may not survive this battle, but at least we'll stand for something." Other captains chimed in. Each told a similar story. They were tired of being pushed around by larger empires. They were inspired by humanity's loyalty. They wanted to be part of something better. The Vreneth commander looked at his tactical display with growing concern. His 12 battle groups still outnumbered the combined human and allied fleet, but not by much. And the political situation had changed dramatically. If he fired on this coalition, it would spark a much larger conflict. He made a calculation. Was Tharine Prime worth a war with multiple species? Was keeping 300 aliens worth the diplomatic disaster this would cause? Finally, he gave the order. "Stand down. Let them through." The blockade parted. Junho's transports moved toward Tharine Prime. Human ground teams landed and began the final evacuation. Tilani and the remaining Tharine gathered their belongings and boarded the ships. As Tilani climbed the ramp, she turned for one last look at her homeworld. The ancient building stood silent and empty. This had been her people's home for millennia. Now they were leaving it behind. Junho met her at the airlock. "Are you all right?" Tilani nodded slowly. "It's hard to leave, but we're not just leaving. We're surviving. My father would understand that. He would be proud of you, perhaps, but I think he would be more proud of you, of all humanity. You kept a promise that most species would have forgotten." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small data crystal. "This contains my father's personal logs. Everything he wrote over 200 years. His thoughts, his feelings, his doubts about saving your ship." She handed it to Junho. He never regretted his choice. Not once. Junho held the crystal carefully. "Thank you. We'll preserve this. Your father's story will be taught to every human child. They'll know what he did for us." The last Tharine boarded the transports. 347 people, the final group to leave their homeworld. The human fleet began to withdraw, moving slowly and peacefully. The Allied ships stayed in formation, protecting the transports. The Vreneth watched them go. They could have attacked. They probably should have from a strategic standpoint. But they didn't, because sometimes even empires recognize when they've been outmaneuvered. On the bridge of her flagship, Nari watched the evacuation complete. 1,847 Therine, safe aboard human ships. Every single one who wanted to leave had been evacuated. The mission was a complete success. Her communications officer spoke up. "Commander, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. News organizations, governments, even individual citizens. They're all talking about what we did. What are they saying? Some think we're crazy. Some think we're heroes. But everyone is talking about the humans who risked war to honor an old debt." Nari smiled. "Good, let them talk. Let the galaxy see what humanity stands for." As the fleet jumped to FTL, heading back to human space, Junho sat with Tilani in the transport's common area. She was looking through old photographs of her father stored on a personal device. "This is him," she said, showing Junho an image. Captain Saran stood on the deck of his ship, looking young and confident. "This was taken the year before he saved your colony ship." 1 year had passed since the evacuation. Tilani stood on a hillside overlooking a valley on New Haven, the same world where the New Dawn had landed 87 years earlier. Below her, a small village was taking shape. Tharine architecture blended with human designs, creating something new and beautiful. Children played in the streets, both human and Tharine youngsters running together and laughing. Tilani smiled. A year ago, she wouldn't have thought this possible. Her people had been dying, fading into history. Now they had hope again. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Youngji Park walked up beside her. She was a xenobiologist who had been working with the Tharine since they arrived. "It is," Tilani agreed. "When we first came here, I thought we would just be refugees living on charity. But you've given us something more. You're not refugees. You're citizens. This is your home now." Youngji looked at her tablet. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important. We've been studying Tharine genetics and population data. Can I show you something?" They walked to Youngji's laboratory on the edge of the settlement. Inside, screens displayed complex genetic maps and population models. The Tharine decline wasn't just about old age or loss of purpose, Youngji explained. You were experiencing a genetic bottleneck. Your population had become so small that genetic diversity was critically low. Each generation was weaker than the last, Tilani nodded sadly. We knew this. Our scientists had studied it. But we couldn't fix it. We didn't have enough diversity left. But we might be able to help. Youngji pulled up new models. Human genetic engineering has advanced significantly. We can't create new Tharine genetic material, but we can diversify what exists. We can use samples from your entire population to create more genetic variation. It's delicate work, but it could reverse the decline. Tilani stared at the screens. You can save us. Not just give us a place to live, but actually save our species. We believe so. It would take time and cooperation from the Tharine community. But yes, we think we can increase genetic diversity enough that your population can grow naturally again. Tears filled Tilani's eyes. My father gave you survival. Now you're giving us more than survival. You're giving us a future. That's what family does, Youngji said with a smile. The genetic restoration project began immediately. Every Tharine on New Haven and the other human colonies participated. Youngji and her team worked carefully, respecting Tharine biology and culture at every step. It wasn't about changing who they were. It was about giving them the diversity they had lost. 6 months into the project, the first results appeared. Tharine birth rates began to rise. For the first time in 300 years, more Tharine were being born than dying. The population started to grow. Meanwhile, Ambassador Yunji-Oh was working on a different kind of future. She stood before representatives from 17 different species in a new diplomatic facility on Mars. These were the species that had helped humanity during the Tharine evacuation, plus others who had been watching and were impressed by what they saw. The galaxy has been dominated by large empires for too long, Yunji said. Species like the Vreneth absorb smaller cultures and call it protection. They take resources and call it cooperation. We need something different. A Pellan representative spoke up. What are you proposing? An alliance of free worlds, not based on conquest or domination, but on mutual aid. When one member needs help, others respond. No species is too small. No culture is disposable. We stand together. The larger empires will oppose this, another representative warned. Let them, Yunji said. Humanity has shown that standing up to empires is possible. You all proved it when you came to help us at Tharine Prime. Together, we're stronger. Over the next months, the Free Worlds Coalition was formed. 17 species signed the founding charter. They agreed to mutual defense, cultural preservation, and economic cooperation. It wasn't a large alliance compared to the old empires, but it was something new in the galaxy, something based on choice and respect. The Vreneth Empire was not pleased. They had lost face during the Tharine situation, and now they were losing influence as minor species joined the coalition, but they couldn't stop it. The galaxy was changing. On New Haven, preparations were underway for a special ceremony. It had been 88 years since Captain Ji-won Kim had carved her promise into stone. Now humanity was adding to that monument. Haran Song, Dr. Daesong's granddaughter, was a historian. She had spent years researching the New Dawn rescue and the Tharine people. She stood before the old monument reading her great-grandfather's notes. Day had died 3 months earlier at age 95. He had lived long enough to see the Tharine saved and to meet Tilani, daughter of the captain who had rescued him as a child. His last words had been simple. We kept the promise. Now Haran was overseeing the creation of a new monument beside the old one. It would show a Tharine and a human with hands joined, a symbol of friendship that spanned nearly a century. The day of the unveiling arrived. Thousands gathered on New Haven. Humans and Tharine stood together. The leaders of both communities were present. News crews from across the galaxy recorded everything. President Mirai Shin stood at the podium. 88 years ago, Captain Saran of the Tharine made a choice. He gave his people's future to save 50,000 strangers. Today we complete the circle. The Tharine gave us survival. We give them a future. But this monument isn't just about debt. It's about what happens when kindness meets kindness. She gestured to the new monument. The covering fell away, revealing the sculpture. A Tharine and human, hands clasped, looking toward the stars together. The inscription read, Suran of the Tharine saved 50,000 strangers. Humanity saved 1847 in return. The debt can never truly be repaid, because kindness is infinite. Tilani stepped forward to speak. She was old now, her silver skin showing her age, but her voice was strong. My father used to tell me stories about the day he saved the human colony ship. He said the hardest part wasn't giving away the stabilization core. It was knowing he would never see what became of you. She paused, looking at the crowd. But if he could see this moment, see humans and Tharine living together, working together, building together, I think he would weep with joy. You didn't just honor a debt, you honored the spirit of what my father believed. That life is precious. That strangers can become family. That kindness is never wasted. She touched the monument gently. Thank you. For remembering. For caring. For showing the galaxy that some things are worth more than power or profit. After the ceremony, Tilani walked to the original monument, the one Captain Ji-won had created. A young human girl was standing there, maybe 8 years old, reading the words carved in stone. Did you know Captain Ji-won? The girl asked Tilani. No, little one. She died before I came here, but I know what she promised. My teacher says humans always keep their promises. Tilani smiled. Your teacher is right. What's your name? Sumi. Well, Sumi, do you know why this promise was so important? The girl thought carefully. Because the Tharine helped us when we needed it? That's part of it. But there's something more. Your people could have forgotten us. 88 years is a long time. You could have said the debt was too old or too expensive or too dangerous to repay. But you didn't. Do you know why? Sumi shook her head. Because your people understand something that many in the galaxy have forgotten. Kindness isn't a transaction. It's not about keeping score. It's about recognizing that we're all connected. When my father saved your colony ship, he didn't think about what he would get in return. He just saw people who needed help. And when humans saved us, Tilani continued, they weren't paying back a debt. They were honoring what my father believed. That life has value, that kindness matters, that we should help each other not because we have to, but because we can. Sumi looked up at her. Are you glad you came here? More than I can say. I thought the Tharine story was ending. Instead, it's beginning again. As the sun set over New Haven, the two monuments stood side by side. the old promise and the new reality. Around them, humans and Thurine walked together through the settlement. In laboratories, scientists worked to restore Thurine genetics. In schools, children of both species learned together. In government offices, representatives planned for a shared future. Across the galaxy, the story of humanity's loyalty spread. Other species watched and wondered. Some thought humans were foolish. Others thought they were naive. But more and more began to think differently. Maybe there was another way to exist in the galaxy. Maybe power didn't have to come from conquest. Maybe strength could come from standing by your principles even when it was hard. The Free Worlds Coalition continued to grow. Small species that had lived in fear of larger empires found courage. They saw that humans had stood up to the Vreneth and survived. They saw that honor and kindness could be just as powerful as weapons and threats. In a quiet room on New Haven, Talani recorded a message. It would be preserved in the archives, alongside her father's logs and Captain G1's records. A complete history of the connection between humans and Thurine. To those who come after, Talani spoke to the camera. Remember that this almost didn't happen. The Thurine were dying. Humanity could have ignored us. The galaxy expected them to forget an old debt and focus on their own interests.